Well, welcome everybody. This is your host, Ken D. Foster. My co-host today is Dr. James Lee. Hey, it's great to have you, James.
It's great to be here again. Always great hanging out with you, Ken. We always have a great time. Our conversations always mean a lot to me, and then co-hosting is that much more. Thanks.
I love it. Well, today we're talking about what I think is one of the most important steps to healing, and that is the being able to, first of all, get clear, bring in awareness of what needs to change, acknowledge it, and then let go of resistance to change. A lot of people get stuck, as you mentioned before, in the green room, that they're ingrained in their thinking. And what I would say is they're ingrained with a lot of disempowering beliefs that got them to a place where they're not healthy, mind, body, emotionally, mentally, that place. But, change is hard for people. Yeah, it's difficult.
Well, change is hard because just like any trail, just like any path, the more you travel it, the deeper the rut becomes. And it's easier just to stay in that rut if you don't do it. You don't actively change directions. You have to do something about it.
Well, fortunately, the universe is designed with pain. And pain is a great motivator of humankind. And unfortunately, a lot of times it has to get to critical stages before people are ready to change. And that's sad. But you don't have to on this show, though. That's why you're talking. That's why we're having.
If you change direction early, the pain doesn't have to be as bad.
Yeah, exactly. So 100%. I love that. I hope we give people today some vision, right? And, being able to let go of the resistance to change, set up some new visions, get clear with your commitments, right? When, you don't have to wait till it gets to stage 4 and whatever it is. Okay. You can catch it at stage 1, right?
100%.
Yeah. So that's what I want to talk about today. And we have a really great guest today, James, and
I'm looking forward to it. We met in the green room, and she seems like a fantastic person. I can't wait for everyone else to meet her.
I can't either. All right, listen, I'm going to take a quick break. We come back, we're going to have our very special guest. We'll be right back.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is your host, Ken D. Foster, with my co-hosts, James Lee and Dr. James Lee, actually. And today we have the beautiful Crystal Gibson with us. Crystal, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I saw when we got met in the green room, one of the things I went, oh my gosh, Crystal has such a beautiful smile. So I was like, oh, what? My audience will love that.
Thank you.
For those of you that don't know Crystal, she's an executive and enterprise coach. She's a speaker, author, dedicated to helping leaders and teams thrive in today's complex organizational environments. With over 2 decades of experience across industries such as hospitality, technology, human capital management, and finance, Crystal has honed her expertise in creating sustainable change, which is what we're talking about today, by centering on the people who drive results. So we're going to give you some insights and understanding on how to drive results and maintain those results, right? So it's a big deal. Crystal, how'd you get involved in the change management side of the world?
Yeah, so I've been in organizations for different industries, and I've noticed that once I get into them, I'm starting to notice different patterns and different gaps that need to be filled when they go through these different transformations, like agile transformation, digital transformation. No one's really looking at the people part of it. So, in order to have those kind of changes and to hold on to some of those benefits, I realized that it needed to be more about the conversations that were happening in the spaces and more about the way that people were embracing the change as opposed to the change kind of coming at them.
I love it.
I really got involved with focusing on those topics.
Well, I just want to jump right into this. What are the barriers to change?
I think most of the time the barriers to change are communication based. There's conversations that people are avoiding or maybe afraid of having. There's some different cultures that really respect maybe the louder voice or the hierarchy, or maybe it's just a lot of people not really knowing the expectations of the things that they need to say and how they need to say it and what spaces they need to say it in. So I think that's one of the biggest barriers. It's just that communication and expectation. I'm not really having that feedback loop in place for people to really know what needs to happen.
And I think it's communication, with others, but it's also communication with ourselves. And I think that, I know that disempowering beliefs leave clues, right? If you got a belief that you're, let's say, an ineffective communicator with somebody else, right? How's that going to impact your communication? Or if you have a belief that says that, there's no weeds in my garden, and yet there's weeds all over in your personal life, right? You're gonna have issues.
I had a question for Crystal.
Sure.
Was there an overall theme to the type of miscommunications or communications that were withheld, in these settings?
Good question.
Yeah. I think the overall theme, if I were to really just put my finger on it, would be fear. There's a level of fear in spaces and cultures that prevents people from saying certain things. And, to your point, it might be just the fear of, how you're showing up and how you're being perceived by others. You don't want to fear that you fear that you're not going to seem competent in your role, or you're not going to seem like the person that they hire you for, and people aren't going to really trust you. So throughout all of it, it really feels like fear. Even when you get to the leadership level, they fear to lose their position, lose their part in the hierarchy, lose incentive. So there's just a lot of fear going on.
And with fear comes stress.
Yeah.
I have a friend in the corporate setting, and he calls it death by 1,000 cuts. And I asked him, what does that mean? He said, well, I can be fired on any given day for any number of things that I do or have done or will do. And I'm not even sure if I know if I can prevent it. And any of these things could be fired. And so I'm like, wow, that's not an easy thing to live through. That's anxiety provoking. I mean,
it's so crushing. It crushes your soul. I mean, if you're showing up that way, always fearing that, at any moment you could be fired, then that really has an impact on how you feel in different spaces. And then in turn, it impacts what you say and how you show up to everybody else.
So then how do you reverse that? How did you take fear out of the equation? And what is your prescription for that?
Yeah, well, you can't eliminate it, right? It's just natural. But I think it's very important to be able to identify it and go right at it. You know what I mean? Because if you don't really identify it and are aware of it being present within the spaces, then you can't fix something that you're not aware of, right? So really identifying it. I use, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, started using there's a form of the Enneagram called IAQ 9 that really let people take assessments and figure out like what is their different motivational types, what do they really focus on. So I kind of use that in some of the spaces that I work on so that people can understand what are the different motivations that people that they work around have, what is their communication styles, and then also what are some of the blind spots that you might have that another person may not have that can maybe help you out.
And are you doing this through a series of meetings, group chats? I mean, what's the process?
Yeah, it's a meeting, it's workshops, but then it is one-on-one conversations because there's some conversations that you wouldn't feel comfortable having, especially if you're a leader or executive, that would be one-on-one conversations about once you figure out your type, what's your approach that you would take when you show up to your team. If you're showing up one way and you really prefer to show up another way, what are different strategies that we could take for you to go into these meetings or these sessions with your team to show up the way that you want to feel impactful.
Well, what do you mean show up? Like, give me an example.
Yeah. So, for example, there was one leader I worked with. His team felt like he was a micromanager, right? He felt like he was a micromanager. So the reason why that was happening was because they just went through an agile transformation. When they gave everyone the training, they didn't really say where the manager's role fits in. They really just said where the manager did not fit in. So the manager is not supposed to show up to the daily, not supposed to show up to the retrospective. So he didn't really know where to fit in. So he started filling in this other role called a product owner. And he started making those decisions and really kind of, overstepping what that person's role is because he was just making assumptions of where he fit in. So that level of clarity of just understanding what about your motivation makes you feel insecure in this space. And he was like I think like a quiet specialist or a 5, where they have to make sense of things. That's their comfort zone. If they don't make sense of things, then they're afraid of, what might happen. So in order for him to solve this, it was more about go to your team and ask them what do they need from you. Have that conversation, ask them, as opposed to making the assumption that you fit here or you fit here. And once he opened that up to them, give them the opportunity to say what they need from him, then it was more clear and it worked better.
That's good. Hey, let me ask you this then. What strategies do you recommend for individuals who are feeling they're constantly trying to prove themselves in the workplace? Because we got that going on too.
Yeah. I think it is a level of self-awareness, taking a pause and really understanding who are you trying to prove this to? Why are you trying to prove this? And what outcomes are you looking for? Another tool that I use is an empathy map. So it's a way for you to really say, okay, based on who I want to be or how I want to show up to other people, what do I want to see? What do I want to feel? Lay that all out and then really ask people that you're working with, how am I showing up? And then understand where the gaps are and then figure out how can you get to that North Star that you created on that empathy map.
That's good. I think you mentioned, self-confidence, self-esteem. I think we have an identity crisis in America, personally. Right? I don't think people really know who the self is and how the self even shows up. Right? So they think that they're their cars or that their houses or that they're their job or that they're, what they're speaking, but they don't really get. You mentioned that soul level. How do you get people in the corporate place to understand who they really are and, how powerful they are?
Well, there's more conversation around things that they value. So when you really change the conversation about goals and really have the focus more about values, you'll start hearing people connect on a different level. You'll start to be able to hear different connections that are just more than the organization. So then the people who connect on the same values, they can kind of keep that connection beyond the organization, beyond the project they might be working on, beyond those things. And that's really a thing that I think a lot of people need to understand when they get into new organizations too, is figure out what your personal values are and then figure out what that company's values are and figure out if they align with you, because if they don't, that's friction. You're just setting yourself up for friction.
Boy, that's a big piece. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, it sounds like what you're doing is giving these employees and these executives a space to really interact as human beings. Are you using exercises, fun exercises to get them to break down barriers? Are you getting to talk about hang out after work? I mean, what are those ways to interact that you're incorporating?
Yeah,
Crystal, I got to interrupt both you guys. I got to pay a bill here or two. So Crystal's going to answer that question when we come right back from the break.
Imagine this is your money and someone wants to take it from you. Who is it? The IRS. Guess what? They want your money and they can take it, all of it if they want. Remember, they sent you that letter right over here that said, hey, you owe us a bunch of cash and we're going to take it from you right now. So what do? You fight back by letting our team of experts work it out with the IRS so you can keep your money. And hey, we're good at what we do. When you hire us, you get a team of guys on your side that know the IRS laws, and we'll fight really hard to save your money. So if you owe the IRS a ton of cash and you want to keep it, call right now and learn for free how we can help you put it back in your pocket. 5 minutes of your time right now can save you thousands of dollars. And the best part, it's a free call. So please call right now.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is your host, Ken D. Foster. I'm with my co-host, Dr. James Lee, today. We're talking to Crystal Gibson, and we're talking about change and how effective change can work for you in your work environment or your home environment, and the challenges that people face, in both environments when it comes to change. So, all right, we got some exercises that you do and stuff. That's cool. You want to mention one or two of those that we can talk about? And then we want new book too, though. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few exercises. What I love to do is I love to put leaders in the room and do like a leadership work retrospective, really mirroring the voice of their team back to them. And sometimes what that creates is the feeling of the leadership team being one team. And that's what teams really want, right? So if you have a leader in engineering, a leader in marketing, a leader in quality assurance, all these different silos, most of the time they kind of show up to teams in different spaces, not as a unified team. So I love putting them together in a workshop and getting them to kind of align with the same goals and same conversations and hear the same voices of their teams and really come out of those sessions feeling like we are one leadership team. It really makes a powerful impact to the teams, because you'll see what teams really want is they do want their leadership team to be one team. They want a unified feeling.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, because if you're coherent, if there's coherence, there's harmony within the workplace, there's, people are more productive, they're more happy, there's less stress.
Yeah. And there's nothing worse than having a leader who has a different opinion than a person that you work with, their leader, because it just creates conflict between the work that you're doing. So when you have all the leadership team unified and being on the same page, then that mirrored down to the different teams.
Yeah. I like how you put the manager in the role of the team. Do you ever flip the roles?
Sometimes I do. I do
get dicey.
I do action sessions. I use a framework called OKRs, Objectives and Key Results. And I have the teams really figure out, okay, what does success look like to you? And based on what that success looks like, what are some key results or some indicators that can show us or that tells us that we are being successful? And I have them create that, and then we show that to the leadership team. Most of the time, the leadership team is, completely in awe to hear the voice of their team in that way. Because most of the time, the team is sitting back like, well, let me see what my leader thinks is important. So really flipping that and saying, okay, what do you think is successful is really eye-opening.
Well, Crystal, you got a new book out, and I want to look at your book here with you and ask you a couple things. What made you write The Authentic Alliance?
Yeah, so about a year ago, I had a pause in between different contracts, and I was thinking about all of the roles I was in the past 20 years, and I was thinking if I was to give myself a practical guide to help me through a lot of these things that made me struggle making an impact in these organizations, what would it look like? And so here's the book that I wrote, just with a lot of experiences and a lot of client interactions that I had.
I love that. And what, my audience is going to read the book. What are they going to walk away with? Like, what are some of the benefits or stories that they might take home and, to change up the way they think, to change up their lives?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of personal stories I have in there about first coming into the organization, feeling like an outsider. And so they'll walk away with seeing that journey of feeling like an outsider into becoming a trusted advisor and a true ally within the organization. So you'll follow that. And there's a lot of different stories of different clients that I've worked with that had those particular struggles, or they had struggles with just being able to create true alliances and have be able to navigate like politics within the organization and things like that. So there's also a framework I put in there. I created a CHARM framework, which is a sustainable approach to change within the organization. So they'll also walk away with that framework as well.
I love that. I don't think I've ever asked anybody this, but I'm going to ask you, what's the soul of this book? What's the message to those that read this?
The soul of the book is, just because you feel like an outsider when you first start in an organization does not mean that you do not have the power within yourself to become that trusted ally. You do have more things that are within your control to really make a real difference.
Man, that's powerful. I love that. Okay. And, there are so many people that feel like outsiders. How do we get to that place in the first place? Why do we feel like outsiders?
I think sometimes it's really not knowing who you are when you show up. Really taking that time to really understand who you are.
Yeah.
It really makes it easier to be able to understand the things you say yes and no to. So I think that is really key. And then there's also, sometimes you do a comparison of yourself to the people that you see within those spaces, and you don't see yourself. And so, again, I think it's a level of self-awareness to understand that if you're different than people who you see, that's it's more of a value than anything.
It's interesting because Dr. Lee, we haven't talked about this on the show, but he had a brain aneurysm, then he had a neck injury, and he had to reinvent himself. He had to find out who he was, right? And I just wonder what your take on that is.
No, I'm listening because I completely agree. You need a place in this world. Before my brain tumor, I had a brain tumor and a spinal cord injury that pretty much took me out of commission for a good part of a decade. And I was defined by who I was, or at least I thought I was a doctor, right? I graduated with the degree. That's who I am. And then when my brain stopped working and when my body stopped working, I realized that's not who I am. But what do I have to offer this world? And when the answer is nothing, and when you think the answer is nothing, then you are nothing. And so when you show up to work, you don't You're not told what to do. You're not sure your responsibilities. You are literally nothing at that point. So you're searching for it. I can't agree more that the most important thing is to know who you are in that given situation, because your posture will change. Your confidence will change. When you show up as the consultant who with all the answers, everyone's going to look to you and for the answers, and you'll have them because they're listening. But when you're the alien, you're the new person in town, the new worker that they just hired, hey, we have a certain culture, we do things a certain way, and you're literally are the outsider. So I completely understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. All right. Well, listen, I'm just, one of the things, I know I had this issue. I used to put people on pedestals all the time. Okay. And I think this is a culture that puts people on pedestals. Look at social media, and the people that we're putting on pedestals in social media. I mean, I think it's very entertaining. But I just whoa, what was driving this putting people on pedestals in the workplace, Crystal?
I think it's definitely cultural based. It depends on if people really value the hierarchy within the spaces. So if you always look to the executive to make decisions and speak for everyone, and no one can really have a voice without the executive saying something, then of course that person is high up there, right? You want to be like him. I want to be like that, executive one day, but you just don't ever know what is really like. That executive could be the most miserable person in the world. You do not know their life to really understand, where they came from.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it's but it's very disempowering when if you work for an organization right now, and it's a old-fashioned top-down driven management style company where they tell you what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And even if you could join a team, you're supposed to do it a certain way the team is. It seems to me that cuts down a lot of creativity. And I think that new organizations that understand that the president of the company and the secretary and the assistant all are playing roles, and all those roles are very important to the organization, and nobody's better than anybody else. I think that's a lot more healthy in a corporate environment. Do you come across those, or do you how do you embrace that?
I think the mindset shift that needs to be in place really is the thought that the people who are closest to the customer or to the client know the most, because the way that technology is moving so fast, there's no one person that's going to know everything. And even if you dig into that executive level or that high position for that period of time, things have changed since then, right? So client or customer expectations are ever evolving. So really trusting the people who are closest to the customers or to the client is really the way to go. If anything, those should be the people that really are honored and their voices are really amplified, and as opposed to like the person with the highest title or the loudest voice or things like that. It should be the person who is who has the most context behind what customers expect, and then also who receives feedback from customers more often.
That's good. Well, listen, I got to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you about the inner guidance. I tell people, if you, we don't need any more information. I mean, use AI, use Google. There's lots of information. But to get along in this world, I think you need that inner intuitive guidance. And I'd like to get your hit on that when we come back.
Hi, everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. You know, we're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
Hi, folks. Joe Namath here. Did you know that I wear hearing aids? I love my hearing aids, and I am here to help you get a deal on the same brand I wear.
Don't waste thousands on expensive hearing aids when you can get MD Hearing's revolutionary Neo hearing aids for just $297 a pair. The Neo is a true hearing aid, not an amplifier. With rechargeable technology many customers say is superior to more expensive models. And you can get 2 Neo hearing aids with a 45-day risk-free trial, free shipping, and free lifetime US-based support for only $297. The Neo is nearly invisible with its tiny in-the-ear canal design.
Call my friends at MD Hearing and get the over-the-counter hearing aids that I use for you.
Call now and get not 1 but 2 Neo hearing aids for just $297.
800-789-7885. Again, that's 800-789-7885.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I'll be right back with my guest, Crystal Gibson, and my co-host, Dr. James Lee, in just a minute. But I want to mention to you that we do have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. Most importantly, if you do subscribe to it, you can pass on our shows to people that you love and care about, which I hope you'll do. Just go to youtube.com/the @Courage Network, youtube.com/Courage Network, and subscribe so that you don't miss a show. And of course, you can pass it on. Thanks so much. Okay, Crystal, let's get into that intuitive side of navigating the world with everything coming in it. You know, we got so much stuff going on all the time. How do you teach people about intuition or guiding them to tune into their inner guidance? What do you do with that?
Actually, I practice TM or transcendental meditation for about 10 years now. And that is the thing that really helps me. And I try with people, not necessarily focused on transcendental meditation, but I do hold space for people to be able to hold space for themselves. To sort of pause and really get quiet and, have that space clearing time.
What is transcendental meditation? How do you define that?
Transcendental meditation, it's an approach, it's a natural approach where you are given a mantra, and the mantra is something that you repeat silently to yourself while you meditate for 23 minutes, twice a day. So what it does is it really kind of clears out your clutter out of your brain. So, you might be thinking all these things when you first wake up in the morning. Sometimes I know maybe both of you guys can relate. You wake up with all this kind of negative feelings about the day that's ahead of you, because you have all these expectations of things that maybe happened the day previous. And so if you start the day off with meditation, 20 minutes, just clearing your mind, it kind of starts you off with going into the day with kind of a clear mind, not with the same clutter that you started off with.
How long have you been doing this for? When did you decide? When was the epiphany moment that you said?
So the moment, okay. This I was working at a company that they were in human capital management. So they had a time period that was called year end, right? Year end is where you did the W-2s. You basically didn't sleep. You burnt yourself out basically to get these W-2s ready for everybody. And so at the time, my mother-in-law was living with us and watching my children. And she had cancer. She was going through treatment and she was watching me burning myself out. And she was like, I think she saw an Oprah episode one day.
You're headed the wrong direction. Yeah.
She saw an Oprah thing that said, hey, if you don't have 20 minutes for yourself, there's something's wrong. You know, so I was sleeping with my laptop at that time. So I'm like, you know what, you're right. I started reading books about meditation. I started doing the YouTube guided meditation. And then someone told me about transcendental meditation. So then I went to a coach. I got a transcendental meditation coach and learned that practice from there.
You got it right away. You said, I don't, you put one and one, two together. One and one together got two. You looked at your family members that I don't want to be there. Like,
She said that's how she felt that she got sick, was she burned herself out. She worked at the post office, never took breaks. So, you know, I take advice from someone who's lived it. I really trust experience. So
you are very smart. I wasn't. Yeah, most people aren't that. They don't get that advice and take it like that. So amazing. I applaud you there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm gonna plus your piece with the meditation. You know, when before I go to sleep at night, I set my intention to wake up feeling alert, awake, and alive. I set intention because I know how powerful it is. And when I wake up in the morning, I open my eyes up and I go to gratitude. First thing, gratitude. Why? Because of what you said, Crystal. So many of us, and me included, before I started that practice, wake up worrying about the day, what I had to do, or what, you know, I went, man, I'm not going to do that. So I go to gratitude. And then after that, when I get out of bed, then I do my meditation. I'm just like you. Love to meditate morning and evening, you know, minimum, usually 40 minutes in the morning, usually 30 minutes at night, something like that, you know.
Yeah, I do mine a little reverse than yours. So I meditate and then I do my gratitude journal after the break.
There you go. Either way, go just change the mind, you know, get that mind going in the right direction, man. That's what we're talking about here. Yeah. You know, I want to switch focus a little bit here because I know you talk about this and it's an important piece when you're working in a corporate environment or even your home environment. So many people compare themselves with other people. They judge themselves based on how somebody else looks or how much money somebody's making or what kind of car they drive, and they compare themselves. And what do you say about that?
I think it really does funnel into gratitude. Like, if you're grateful, if you know what you're grateful for, it makes it really hard for you to look at someone else and compare yourself to them and think that you're less than. Also, I think it goes back to having more communication. Talk to that person and really understand what their life is. Then if you're really comparing yourself to them, understand where they are in life, and you might be surprised to understand that they might be in a different phase of their life. They might be in something that you've already lived through or you haven't lived through yet. So that's why you're just not at that stage. So I think once you get really clear on the person that you are comparing yourself to, it kind of creates that space of understanding, how can this person help me, as opposed to let me be that person. They might be the person that could help you get to the next level, or they may not, but at least you know.
I think fundamentally what you've discovered is that you have to turn off your internal instinct. Our brain is it's a differential engine. Our brain works on differences. We are checking patterns, and so we notice differences first. So we have to fight that instinct to say, okay, we aren't different. We're on the same team. How can we work together?
Yeah, absolutely, and get evidence behind your assumptions that you're making too.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when it shifted for me, somebody told me, you know, that guy that has all the money over there. And I said, yeah. I said, somebody said, well, you know, he puts his underwear on the same way you do in the morning. And I don't know why, but for some reason that clicked with me. And I went, oh yeah, that's a good point. But then,
That is so true. I mean, I've had someone tell me the similar thing. They were like, that VP there that you're afraid to talk to. She's going to work trying to do the best that she can do to feed her family, just like you're trying to do.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
For me, it was I don't know why. I just remember this. It was on the news. It was some rich person's yacht, and the big news was that the commode, the toilet, was made out of 24 karat gold. And I just remember thinking, I think we all flush it the same way. Who cares what it's made out of?
That's funny, man. Yeah. Well, I think the bottom line there is it's you can use the tool just like me. Just like me, you're trying to earn a living. Just like me, you're trying to grow and learn. Just like me, you're trying to move up the scale. Just like me. I think if we look at it in a positive light, that we're all connected here. We're all learning, we're all growing, we're all evolving. And when you get that concept, then all of a sudden it's not so much about what the other person's doing or not doing. It's about what you're doing to improve, to grow, to develop, to be the best version of yourself. All right, I want to put your book back up on screen here for a second because it's important for us to let my audience know about this amazing book. So I'm going to put that up, and there it is, The Authentic Alliance, Crystal J. Gibson. You can get it on Amazon, and you can get it. Where else can they get it, Crystal?
Anywhere that you buy books. So you can get it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it at any book seller.
Okay, cool. I love it. Well, I know what it takes to write books. Books are difficult to write. They take a while, and I say this, that, we don't really write books. Books write us. They, can you relate to that?
Definitely. I've read back after it got published, and I'm looking at it, learning lessons again.
Yeah, I love it. Well, okay, so we're getting down to the wire here. I guess I have one last question. Maybe Jonathan, Dr. James Lee will have a question. So my last question would be about the just a reminder. Maybe you can remind us. If a person's stuck and they want to, change something in their life, what's your number one recommendation?
Number one recommendation for me is to pause and become self-aware, and also to be able to focus on how you're communicating. Communication is key.
Communication's key. Okay. Dr. James, any final question?
Yeah, my final question is, how come you keep calling me Jonathan? No.
That's who you were in a former life. Yeah. Somebody introduced me to you that way once, I think.
No, I really like that. I had a great time with you, Crystal, today. I had a great time. I gave head. So no, I think that if anyone who's out there in the workplace should buy your book. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then, so I guess I'm kind of like Columbo today. I don't have one last question. I might have another last question for you, Crystal. When you're not writing books and coaching and doing whatever you're doing, what do you do? What do you love to do? Let's bring the love factor into this a little bit here.
Well, I am in Florida, like I was telling you guys earlier. So I love sitting at the beach. I love just staring at the ocean, letting my mind drift, and really just becoming centered and really getting my nervous system together and being able to just be one with nature. I love sitting in nature.
And how important would you say transformation and change is in the workplace when we bring love in it? Does that help, right? Does that help?
It definitely does, especially when you are in spaces that people don't really look at each other as humans, if you know what I mean. So sometimes you look at another person as just a way to get to the next step. But if you bring love into it, and if you think I'm going to show up and be of service to my team, be of service to my leaders, that love really, that energy is really magnetic, it's very contagious, and people will feel it from you and be able to duplicate that. And so that only funnels to the customer, and the customer can really know if things were created in that kind of energy or not.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. I'll just close out with this. I had a client that I asked to for 1 week just to go out and start look. She was very critical thinking. Everything was wrong. I said, why don't you do this? Just for a week, go out and see what you love, right? Just start putting the eyes of love on. Find things you love in the working place, in your home life, in your environment. She told me at the end of that week, little kids were coming up to her at the grocery store wanting to connect with her, and she didn't even like little kids. But she learned to love them. Anyway, love's an important part of this, and so I hope everybody puts on those eyes too. Crystal, thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate it. Okay, and
thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Dr. James Lee, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was fun.
I love being here. We always have a great time, kid.
We always have a great time.
I'm really
all right. I love it. No. All right. And from my heart to all of you, continue to search for the answers. They're always there. If you ask, you will succeed. You will heal, change, grow, and develop if you continue to, of course, watch our show and set your intention to heal. Take care.